on the flip side, what are some things that you see in coming from the black community that um, may be inaccurate, that interferes with the ability to make progress with race relations, and what are some things that you feel um, perhaps some of the black community is unaware of that is interfering with race relations? And I'll start with Officer Bozeman.
Okay. Well, I work in the field of law enforcement, been there 24 years. And African Americans tend to think that cops are out to get them. And the one thing I can say about law enforcement in Anderson County, when I started, there were some racist cops, there were some racism in it. But we have come a gazillion miles from that time now. If you look at Anderson County, we have 7 law enforcement agencies in our county. Out of those 7, 5 have African Americans either at the top spot or the number 2 spot. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
5 of them do, out of our 7. Um, and we just ran the numbers recently because somebody made a claim that we were racist as a police department. And all those numbers are tracked, and our African American population is 25%, give or take, and they're only account for a little less than 20% of the tickets and the charges. And because the world is getting better with race, I mean, it is, that's just a fact of life. There's a lot less racism in police work. And most of the time when we stop a car, we have no idea of your race until we walk to the window. And because a lot of the time an African American has in his mind that we're out to get him, that turns that takes a situation somewhere it doesn't need to be. And as a law enforcement community, we are spending tons of our time trying to teach cops how to work around and maneuver through that. But basically, how a cop deals with that is all about his character as a person. If you're a good person, you're going to deal with that right. Whether you're 20 or 50, whether you've been taught how or not taught how. But that is the biggest misconception, that we are targeting black people, because we're simply not. The field of law enforcement, when we do have a bad actor, it gets magnified. Bad. And I understand that. It should be magnified. But that's a poor reflection on the law enforcement community as a whole.
And, you know, as Chief said, I mean, the issue here has a lot to do with trust. And, you know, I got, growing up, my dad, you know, there was some people he didn't trust. He told me to stay away from them. Some of their kids became some of my best friends, you know, growing up. I play with them, and I didn't see why I couldn't trust them. I just wanted to play ball with them, you know. So what's plainly present in this situation is I think in our communities, we've got to communicate with our kids that do say those things, where we say not all cops are bad, not all white folk are bad, you know. And I don't know if we're fueling the hatred more, or if we're pushing the betterment more, for lack of a better term. So I would say I hope that our communities are really pushing. You know, you see it all the time on social media, where a cop's out playing basketball and trying to make that narrative, trying to make it right, you know. And shouldn't be that way, but it's that way. And I think the old police athletic leagues and things like that would always kind of help generate or put put that temperature down, as you said. So there has to be a better communication between parents and kids and guardians to say, hey, you know, they're not all bad. You know, there's some Jamie Williamses in this world. You know, pretty cool dude. You know, and so that's kind of what I would advocate for.
The leaders, of course, of whatever entity you're looking at, business, organization, church, law enforcement, whatever, they determine a lot of what happens below that. And it's just like being in your house. You know what your mom and dad is going to tolerate and what they're not. So they need to set the example, of course, and then also continually try to do things to engage and promote diversity. Not just here and there, not just on a special month or when something happens. That needs to be a way of life and something we do all the time. As far as something that maybe the black population refuses to see, I'm struggling with that one because in my mind and in my opinion, I just believe that the black community is a little bit more accepting
That's good.
and tolerant of certain issues than white culture, is what my experience has been. You know, growing up, you know, within our family and people I know, the transition to accept white people in the house, white friends coming over, interracial relationships was a breeze. But when it goes the other way and you see the African Americans trying to integrate into the other lifestyle, there's a lot of resistance. And a lot of so-called Christians and good people where you really see their character.
Trust. I hear that a lot. And just a confession. There has been racial events in the past that if certain national spokesmen came out against it, I would immediately feel like I was being played because I didn't trust that person because I felt the person came with an agenda. But then other people that I had admiration for, they began to speak on the same subject. And all of a sudden it was legit. The facts didn't change, the spokesman changed. And I believe you said the leaders set the standards. And I think it really, really puts a lot of pressure on our leaders. That if the population is going to be trusted, then you must be a leader that is worthy of trust too. I think there's an unintended trickle-down effect. And I believe that one thing that I'm learning, that just because I haven't experienced a certain truth in my life doesn't mean that truth doesn't exist. And I've heard narratives told, and I'm like, I ain't never seen that. That never happened. I'm one guy. I barely crossed the state line, and I think that my life is going to contain all true experiences. But I use my experience to judge what everybody else tries to tell me. And then the media comes in. And I believe that when you see the media spin a story to the right, or spin a story to the left, then there's a certain amount of jaded people that if it's on TV, they don't feel they can trust it either one way or the other. And the whole reason that I wanted to include this as our second subject is if people don't know what to believe, and if people don't know what is true, and if people don't know who they can trust for reliable narrative, there's always going to be a handicap in those people doing what is right, because that lack of trust and that lack of confidence is going to cripple their ability to make the right decision.